Hey guys, today we're going to get started on page 214 of The Land of Stories. It's Jack, Jack said again. Who's that behind you? The voice demanded, and the eyes looked over Jack's shoulder to Alex and Connor. They awkwardly waved. Oh, what are your names? Jack asked the twins. Alex and Connor, Alex told him and gave him a thumbs up. These are my friends Alex and Connor. They're accompanying me to the castle today, Jack said. The doors opened and the twins followed Jack into the castle. It felt like a condensed version of Cinderella's palace. The halls weren't quite as long and the furniture wasn't quite as nice. There were many portraits hung on the walls, but they all were of Queen Red Riding Hood at various ages in different poses, each one more grand than the last. The twins waited with Jack in a hall outside another set of doors. Jack knocked on the doors and immediately took a seat on a bench outside of them. This always takes a moment, Jack said. A series of footsteps and sounds of rushing about came from the other side of the doors. Wait! Don't open the door! I'm not ready yet! Someone said. Hand me that cape! No, not that one! The other one, with the hood! Hurry! Jack began to whistle as he waited. How do I look? What about my dress? Does it seem all right to you? The sounds continued. All right. I'm ready. Let him in. Quickly! Jack stood up just as the doors were opened by a pink-faced and out-of-breath handmaiden. She escorted Jack inside and the twins followed. They entered a long room with tall windows on both sides. The walls were covered in more portraits of the Queen. Looking up from the floor was a giant wolf head with red eyes and a set of sharp teeth. It looked just like the wolves the twins had seen in the dwarf forest, and it alarmed them at first, before they discovered it was just a wolf skin rug spread out on the floor. The twins knew without asking that rug must have been the big bad wolf himself at some point. At the very end of the room, perched elegantly, almost too elegantly, on a large throne was Queen Red Riding Hood. Hello, Jack, Red Riding Hood said. Red Riding Hood was a very pretty young woman, around the same age as Jack. She had bright blue eyes and blonde hair that was done up glamorously behind her crown. She wore a large red gown with a matching hooded cape and a pink corset. She wore a necklace with a massive diamond. Her shoulders were completely bare, and she wore a pair of long gloves with a dozen sparkling rings on her fingers. She was showing too much skin, wearing too much makeup, and was dressed too well for the middle of a regular day. Hello, Red, Jack said. What a surprise! I wasn't even expecting you, she said. Uh-huh, Jack said. And I see you brought guests? Red asked. She was not happy to see that she and Jack were not alone. Yes, this is Alex and this is Connor, Jack said. Hello. She said, hello, Alex said. What's up, Red? Connor said, and was then elbowed by his sister. Hello, Red said, behind a clenched and very fake smile. Welcome to my castle. Please have a seat. Red clapped her hands, and two servants placed a large, cushy chair right next to her throne for Jack to sit on. They brought Alex and Connor each a small stool to sit on some distance away from Red and Jack. Jack moved the chair back away from the throne a couple of feet before sitting on it. He handed Red the basket he had made for her. Is this for me? Red asked him. Oh, how thoughtful you are. You are just too sweet for words. I'll cherish it. You always do, said Jack. So, tell me, what's new with you? Red asked Jack. She was leaning toward him as far as she possibly could without falling out of her throne. Nothing much, Jack said. Same old, same old. His body language made it obvious that he was ready to leave from the minute he sat down. How's the kingdom? Oh, I never bother myself with all that talk of economy and security and peasant needs and blah, 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 Red said. My granny takes care of all of that for me. She's much better at it than I would be anyway. Red got tired of holding the basket. She snapped her fingers, and her handmaiden collected the basket from her. Put it with the others, Red instructed. The handmaiden collected it from her and headed out of the room. The twins figured this was their chance. May we see the others? Alex asked. The others? Red asked. The other baskets, Alex said. Red was looking at her peculiarly. My brother loves baskets. Connor nodded, going right along with it. I do. They are my most favorite thing, Connor said. You know what they say, life is better with baskets. Red was staring at them as if they were the strangest people that she'd ever met in her life. If you wish, she said as she shooed them off. Alex and Connor jumped up and followed the handmaiden out of the room and down the hall. Where does Queen Red Riding Hood keep all of her baskets? Alex asked the handmaiden and then winked at Connor. She wasn't very good at playing dumb. Oh, she has a chamber dedicated entirely to baskets, the handmaiden said. So she has a basket room? Connor asked. Yes, and if you receive as many as she did a year, you would too, the handmaiden said. How many are we talking about? Alex asked. You'll see, she said. The handmaiden opened the door and the three of them walked inside. The room was twice the size of the room that they had just The room was twice the size of the one that they had just been in and was filled from floor to ceiling with thousands and thousands of baskets. Some were on shelves, some were stacked neatly, and others were just piled around on the floor. The handmaiden tossed the basket from Jack into a pile on one side of the room. The Queen gets them for birthdays, holidays, and any special occasion, the handmaiden said. Some are from villagers, some are from friends, some are from the monarchs of neighboring kingdoms. Alex and Connor stared around the room with their mouths open. Really? They thought. How would they ever find the basket they were looking for in all of this? Do you mind if we have a look around? Alex managed to say through her shock. I suppose, the handmaiden said. She looked at the twins curiously and then left them inside the basket room. The twins could barely breathe. They both felt as if a dumbbell had suddenly been tied to their chests. I have never felt this overwhelmed in my life, Connor declared. This is like trying to do the whole summer break packet of schoolwork the day before school starts again. But 1,000 times worse. How are we going to look through all of those? It's not that bad, Alex tried convincing him, but she couldn't even convince herself. We just need to start. You take one side and I'll take the other. Come on, let's do this. They split and rapidly began looking through the piles and piles of baskets for the one with the bark rim. They knew they didn't have much time and grew more anxious after each second. They had no idea there could be so many shapes and sizes and designs of baskets. Like snowflakes, each one was different from the next. Alex was paranoid that she had missed it. Connor kept getting splinters and kept shouting, "Ah!" every time it happened. They had been there for almost an hour and still hadn't covered even 1/4 of the room. They were making a huge mess. The room was twice as disorganized now as it had been when they had entered it. Even Alex wasn't hesitating, throwing baskets around that she had already examined. "This is impossible," Connor yelled, kicking a pile of baskets. Just as he kicked the pile, the door swung open and the handmaiden returned. Alex and Connor froze. She was appalled at all of the chaos. "I don't know what on earth you two are doing, but I think it's time for y'all to leave," she said. The handmaiden escorted them back to the throne room. This time she watched them like a hawk as they sat on their stools. Queen Red Riding Hood was literally hanging off of her throne and grabbing hold of Jack's chair as she talked to him. The twins had never seen Jack look so bored and lifeless. Neither of them had even noticed the twins' return. "You know, Jack," Red said, circling his forearm with her finger, "the Red Riding Hood Kingdom isn't much of a kingdom without a king. Perhaps you should change the name to the Red Riding Hood Queendom, then," Jack said. "Really?" Red laughed much harder than she should have. "You're so funny!" "But that's not what I meant. What I'm trying to tell you, Jack, is that I've never been more ready to get married. If someone asked me for my hand in marriage today, I would say yes. Do you know of anyone who might be interested in marrying me, in being king? Anyone?" A white dove suddenly flew by one of the windows outside and sat on the window's ledge. As soon as Jack saw it, his entire face lit up. His eyes grew wide and he smiled. For once, he looked happy. He turned to Red. Clearly, she wasn't used to seeing him like this either. The twins could practically see her heart beating out of her chest as excitement filled her body. Was he going to propose? Was this the moment that she'd been waiting for her entire life? Dum dum dum. We shall see soon. Bye, guys.